Okay, welcome to this panel called Trusting the Process, How to Build Trust in Open Science Research. Welcome to our delegates. Thank you for joining us on this last panel on the last day of the Forum for Open Research in MENA. It's been quite a ride and it's been a pleasure to be a part of it. Thank you all for being a part of it too. A special thanks to our panelists today. We have three panelists today who are joining us. Before I introduce the first one, I just want to go through some basic housekeeping. Please, if you have any comments, feel free to drop them in the chat section. Feel free to introduce yourself there, talk to each other, to your fellow delegates. It's all about building a community here around open access. So we certainly welcome that. If you have any questions for our panelists during their presentations, please feel free to pop your questions in the question and answer box or the Q&A box in the bottom banner in your Zoom window, and we'll address all questions at the end of the panel, at the end of the presentations. Each of our panelists is going to be presenting for about 20 minutes, and then after that, we'll have a good 20 to 30 minutes for a Q&A session. So if you have any other questions or if you need any support, please feel free to let us know in the chat, and we have others, we have a support staff on as well to help you with that. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first panelist. His name is Nabil Ksibi. Nabil is responsible for fostering ORCID community adoption within the global direct members. He supports ORCID members as they engage with ORCID to integrate different workflows and benefit from the ORCID API interoperability. He has an energy engineering degree, and his interests center around open research, as well as diversity and inclusivity in the innovation and research ecosystem. Nabil, thank you very much for being here with us today. We look forward to your presentation. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Isaac. And special thanks to the organizers of the event. This is a really pleasure to be with you today and to participate in this panel. I'm gonna go ahead and share my desktop. I hope it's visible.
Yep, we can see it. Thank you.
Great. All right, so today I'm gonna talk a little bit about the role of ORCID in laying basically the foundation of trust in digital research information. My name is Nabil Ksibi, I'm engagement lead at ORCID. I'm overseeing our direct members from the global community. What I hope that you can have as a takeaway after this presentation is these very simple points. So I'm going to start with describing what ORCID is offering. Then secondly, I'm going to talk a little bit about ORCID communities of practice. And then we're going to look at how ORCID can be a solution for researchers basically to manage their name ambiguity. And we know that it's a common challenge in the Arabic-speaking countries. The fifth point is really about our latest program, basically to reach out to low and low middle income countries and low income countries. And this program is called the Global Participation Program. Plus, we have a part in our membership, which is basically dedicated to membership equity program. And I'm going to go through that and through different benefits of that program in that section. I'm going to start with the ORCID mission. So the ORCID mission is very simple. We really strive to enable a transparent and trustworthy connection between researchers, their contributions, their affiliations, by providing a unique persistent identifier for individuals to use as they engage in their research, scholarship, and innovation activities. Now going through the ORCID offerings. And I'm going to start with the ORCID ID itself. So this is the ORCID ID. It's a 16-digit identifier that is uniquely identifying a researcher from another researcher or an author from another author. Basically, to make this ID interoperable, we had to look at where to host this identifier. And we found out that the best approach is to include this identifier in a records. So we can imagine that this is the record that is hosting the ORCID ID. And that record is including different sections that communicate with different systems and different other APIs as well, and other infrastructures. As per the organization where this researcher or this author is affiliated, the publishing, let's say, workflows or publishing systems that this record or this researcher is interacting with. And then thirdly, the funder that who is basically funding the research if there is, of course, if there is this step in the research cycle. And as you can see, these arrows are going from the ORCID section to basically those institutional systems or these organizations. And also, it can be the other way around. Means that organizations, publishers, and funders can assert this information or any related information about the funding or the publication or the affiliation to the ORCID record of the researcher or the innovator or the author. And also, that's going to allow, and because of the ORCID API interoperability, that's going to basically allow a communication also between those organizations, between the institution, the publisher, and also the funder. Means that the institution can benefit of the ORCID record by consulting the previous publications and the ongoing ones of the author or the researcher. And the funder as well can collect this information from the affiliation of this researcher and from also the previous publications. And that information is also in two-way sense for between the organization and the funder, between the organization and the publisher, and mostly feeding basically the funder system or funder grant management system from previous publications of that author. These are the different elements. So we talked about organization, we talked about publisher and research output, and we talked about funding. It's very important to note that there are PIDs for organizations, and those PIDs are included in the ORCID registry. It means that organizations can use their organizational identifier, organizational persistent identifier, to assert this affiliation information or employment information into the ORCID record of their affiliates. There are also PIDs for research outputs, and those PIDs are very much important as well to register the work and the activity of the researcher or the author. And it's also included in the ORCID registry, the different type of persistent identifiers for research output. And mainly, we are working with DOIs and also a couple of other identifiers to ensure basically that these inputs and these synchronization of data between the different systems are persistent and identifiable through time. The same thing for funders. So we have also persistent identifiers for grants and for funding, and that can also feed into the ORCID record to basically trust mark this kind of assertions from funders. And we have a nice blog post on how ORCID is keeping the momentum with the FAIR principles that you can consult from this slide after the presentation when you receive the materials. In terms of communities of practice, ORCID is very well known by federating voices from the community and really federating institutions around the use of this unique global persistent identifier registry that is allowing this primary mission to disambiguate names of authors and researchers. So just to briefly explain how this is done. So the ORCID's mission is very much aligned with our offering. So we enable interoperability between research information systems and connect researchers to their contribution. That's our very much simple and straightforward objective. In terms of community, so the broader national and regional research community is very much welcome and already part of the ORCID, let's say, family. And not only we are not only targeting any field or discipline or a kind of a stakeholder, particular stakeholder. We are very much open to work with all the stakeholders that are participating in the research and scholarly ecosystem. And as I explained on the previous slides, we work with research institutions, with funders, with researchers, with publishers. So really anyone who wants to get basically connected to this infrastructure. How we are building practice, we are trying to basically create and maintain this kind of interaction cross-community. To share technology, developments in terms of ORCID integration and also in terms of innovation, and also in terms of communication of research information sharing. So we really want to be always up to date and partner and align with principles and guidelines and guidance on research information sharing in general. Just briefly about the consortium model, we do have a consortium community, of course, which is growing day by day. And as a definition, a consortium at ORCID is a group of 5 or more nonprofit organizations that bond together to form a community of practice that can apply ORCID services and resources in national context using global implementation standards. The benefits of having a consortium at national level or for a community is starting, of course, with the visibility and monitoring. The ORCID integration in general is bringing visibility to national research contributions through authoritative and trusted ORCID data assertions. Then there is the influence of participation, basically how this group of consortium can participate and influence the adoption of ORCID through service providers and platforms, and also participate to the ORCID governance, because we are a community-led organization and our board of members is elected by our members. So any member can have the right to vote for our board of members. A favorable fee model, and we're gonna also talk about this in the Global Participation Program as well, which is offering a great possibility to join ORCID with reduced fee if there is basically a need to form a consortium at national level. Plus, we have the affiliation manager, which is a tool reserved only for consortium. And that's a tool that is allowing institutions to assert affiliation for their researcher in a row. So very simply and basically using a CSV file or an Excel file, like according to a template, pushing it through the portal, and then you can have your affiliations asserted in bulk, let's say, and in very minimum amount of time. Now, if you go to ORCID as a solution for researchers to manage their names and to lift ambiguity on their names, after a survey that we conducted in 2021, we realized that the big majority of our community and our members are voting for ORCID as very supportive in open science and research, also as an infrastructure to reduce administrative burden, and also to assess and report on research impact. So really, these are the three main benefits that our community are seeing out of ORCID. Of course, there is the visibility improvement for researchers, the interoperability improvement, disambiguate researchers, improve data quality, and meet or set national or funder policy. So these are also the other findings that our community voted for when it comes to ORCID benefits. As a small, let's say, screenshot on where is ORCID exactly, and on our members, especially in Africa and the Arabic-speaking countries, we do have a great relationship with the regional RANs, Research and Education Networks, like WACRAN in the Western Africa, like UbuntuNet Alliance in the South and East Africa, and like ASRAN for the Arabic-speaking countries and North Africa. We do have also nice integrations with the Jordanian Open Innovation Platform, with Qatar University, with HBKU, with the Higher Council for Science and Technology in Jordan, with KAUST. So these are different examples of where we have some nice integrations and where really the communities are benefiting out of the ORCID basically engagement. The other advocates of and supporter of PIDs, we do have Africa Archive, the Africa preprint server. We do have also TCC Africa, who is a big advocate of ORCID, ITOCA, which is also a communication center based in South Africa, EFL, and ARIMA, the Eastern Africa Research and Innovation Management Association. Of course, we are still not covering a lot of communities, and this is our objective basically for the upcoming years, to reach out to communities and to grow our membership basically with all our communities in Africa, Middle East, and globally in general. So this is one of the evidence that we have to show that ORCID is very much necessary and beneficial for the Arab-speaking researcher. A quote here that I took from Hossein Turki, who is a professor in Sfax University in Tunisia, and where he says, for example, Monji Ben Hamida can be written as this Munji bin Hamida, or can be written as MB Hamida or M bin Hamida. So there are different spelling and writings of the same name, and that's creating sort of a contrast or discrepancy when collecting this data or harvesting, data from different sources. I'm gonna go ahead and also myself. I mean, the example of myself. My name is Nabil Aziz Ksibi. In my passport, I'm known at ORCID as Nabil Ksibi. I have some works, although I'm not a researcher, but I have some works registered as Ksibi. So it really depends on the form acquiring the name. Yeah, and sometimes on my mood that day. If I cannot find a middle name field, I would just go with Nabil Ksibi, and that's actually creating some ambiguity when discovering my work or my contribution, and that's basically what this example is telling. This is an example of our colleague from DataCite, Mohammed Mustafa. When I tried to search on his name in the ORCID registry, you can really find that for the same name, the first 4 research results were leading to different institutions, and some of them are in Egypt, some of them are in Saudi Arabia, and some of them are in Europe or in the US. So this is really to show that even in the ORCID registry, you can find out this similarity of names, and the only differentiator is the ORCID records. Here it's the same, though, how ORCID is offering the possibility to write the different name spelling and writings. And you can see that there will be a published name here, but there will be also a field where you can add the name as also known as, and that's also going to be visible to public as well. And then there is this example of an article where Karim bin Ramadan, for example, is written. The name of Karim bin Ramadan is written differently in some articles, and the only federator place where to basically verify and check if this is the Karim bin Ramadan that we are looking for is the ORCID record, because in that ORCID record, which is the federator of these different articles, you can find the different writings of this researcher. But most importantly is that these articles are pushed to the ORCID, to his ORCID record. So they can be consultable, they can be findable throughout this ORCID record, even if the name is different in different articles.
Nabil, I'm just going to interrupt you there for a second to give you a 5-minute warning.
Sure, thank you. So very briefly on the basically the principles of the ORCID as an organization. We believe in openness, in trust, and in inclusivity, and those are based on some pillars, which are the social constructs, and the technical constructs. This is an analogy that I tried to create between the different SDGs and our strategy for the upcoming years. And as you can see, we touch different SDGs, and including basically what are the most related to quality education and infrastructure, and where the use of the ORCID registry and ORCID APIs are a plus basically to attain these objectives and to reach out to these objectives. So on using the open infrastructure, we really want to empathize on the trust that we are giving to the researcher, because the researcher ID is owned by the researcher. Nothing can be done without the permission or the authorization of the researcher. So this is why we want to keep this kind of governance, let's say, for the researcher, and also try to balance on the data quality as well. And how we are doing that? Basically by asserting trust markers. So if a university is a member of ORCID, they will have the possibility to assert affiliation and also other activities to the ORCID record of their researchers, and those we call them trust markers. Trust markers are not only in affiliation, but also in works. So you can see here a screenshot from the CAST repository with a publication asserted in that repository, basically. Here, this is the circle diagram where it shows the researcher at the center of everything that we are doing. But as I explained in the first slides, there are also interconnection between this researcher, the funding system, the publishing system, other discovery and profile systems, and also institutional systems. And also these systems are communicating and interoperable between each other. Now, very briefly on the Global Participation Program, we do offer 80% discount for low-income countries and 50% discount for low-income countries in case a country or community would like to form a consortium. And LIC countries and LMIC countries definitions are taken from the World Bank as an income classification. The second part is grants, which is a fund dedicated to community building and also to technical integration. And you can consult this in our public pages in the GPP section and get more insights on that. Very briefly as well, why we do want to focus on communities, because and why we are offering this global participation for communities in low and lower middle income countries, because we really want to see ORCID participation to date, which is to date not very much, I would say it at very high levels. We want to increase this adoption basically in those regions, and this is why we built this program and we created this program. The goals are very simple: developing communities of practice, building and understanding the use of ORCID, and creating an enhanced technical integration to support these communities. What we are having next is this nice webinar, which is called Better Together, which is in collaboration with Crossref and DataCite. Also another webinar in Arabic, which is in collaboration with DataCite. And you're going to also find the links here when I share the presentation slides. And that's pretty it from my side. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Nabil. Thank you for your presentation. I'm sure we'll have questions about it afterwards. I see a few popping up already. I'm going to move on quickly to our next panelist. It's my great pleasure to introduce Mohammed Mustafa. Mohammed joined DataCite this year as a regional engagement specialist for the Middle East and Asia. He works with the community to build more openness and trust in scholarly infrastructure and to support emerging communities transitioning towards open research. He helped launch the ORCID Arabic interface to the Arab world, and he served as a volunteer Crossref ambassador for the MENA region. So he's actually been involved with the organizations which the other two panelists are from as well. Mohammed, I'm not sure if you're here with us in person. I know we have your video recording, just because you're in India at the moment and the internet connection is a little bit unstable. But if you're here with us, let me know.
Hi, Isaac. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, I am here, but I'm not sure about the video stability. So I would prefer if you can see on the video, and I will be there for the Q&A session. So feel free to post any questions in the Q&A box, and I will make sure to respond to them.
Perfect. Okay, great to see you. Thanks, Mohammed. We'll
Thank you.
start the presentation now, and we'll see you in the Q&A afterwards.
Hello, everyone. Nice to connect with all of you and to present at the Forum for Open Research in MENA. So my name is Muhammad Mustafa. I am the Regional Engagement Specialist for the Middle East and Asia at DataCite. And today I'm going to talk about the role of Presentient Identifier in building a trusted and open research infrastructure in the Middle East and North Africa. So yeah, let's start. So who we are a global community that shares a common interest. Our main goal is to ensure that research outputs and resources are openly available and well connected, so it can be reused to advance knowledge across different disciplines, and for sure now and in the future. So as a community at DataCite, we make research more effective through metadata that connects research outputs and the resources. And when we talk about research outputs, we mean all research output, from samples and images to datasets and the preprints. We also enable the creation and management of a persistent identifiers. So we are a DOI registration agency. We also provide integrated services that can improve research workflows and facilitate the discoverability and reuse of research output and resources. We are a non-profit organization based in Germany, and we were founded in the year 2009 by and for the research community. So we believe and we are committed to the principles of open scholarly infrastructure, BOSI principles. So this means that we are community-driven organization and sustainable organization as well. We believe in open metadata and open source applications. We help our members to recognize and support a wide range of research output and resources. And we also support our members in building transparency and trust in the research ecosystem. And we collaborate with different organizations across the research ecosystem. This is a snapshot from DataCite community. So we have more than 2,950 institutional repositories connected with us and using our open infrastructure to register their research output with DataCite DOIs. We have more than 280 members from 52 countries. And so far, we have issued 55 million DOIs. And overall, the globe, we collaborate with 1,400 research organizations. Regarding our strategic initiatives at DataCite, so for sure, we take an active part and lead, in some cases, various initiatives through collaboration with the stakeholders in our community to make open science a reality. So in terms of data metrics, so we are playing an active part and leading the effort for building responsible data metrics through Make Data Count initiative. We also support the building of identifier registry through the Research Organization Registry, or ROR. We also contribute at DataCite to the development of repository discovery initiative, such as the Read3 Data project. So this is some examples of our strategic initiative. And in particular, I'm going to highlight DataCite Global Access Program, one of our strategic initiatives that we launched this year later in my presentation. But before doing that, let's have a quick introduction about persistent identifier. So a persistent identifier is a unique alphanumeric string referring usually to a digital resource. It always points to the same resource with a metadata representation about that research output or that resource. So there are different types of PIDs, as I will explain now. There are PIDs that can be assigned for research output and resources. like DOIs. There are bids that can be assigned for people like ORCID ID. There are also bids that can be assigned for places like research organizations, for example, and the most famous one is the ROR ID. This is an example for an ORCID record for an academic researcher. So this is an example for an identifier or ORCID identifier that can be assigned for researchers. This is another example for bid for places, universities in that context. And we have an example. So this is the ROR ID of United Arab Emirates University. Digital object identifiers, as I said, so there are a wide range of research output and resources that data-side DOIs can support. So we have research datasets and collections associated with the workflows. We have the software, we have the images, the samples, the models that have been produced during conducting the research. Also, data-side DOIs can support the gray literature materials, such as thesis, dissertation, reports, unpublished conference paper, newsletter, preprint journal articles, technical standard. All these research outputs that usually are stored and deposited into an institutional repository. This is an example of a data set with using a data-side DOI. This is another example for a thesis that has used a digital object identifier as well. And this is an example for a university report that has been deposited into an institutional repository, and they are using a DOI for that one as well. This is an example for a software code that has been developed while conducting the research and shared also with the community. This is an example also for national archives and images. Now they are using a digital object identifier to refer to these outputs. This is another example for text files stored in an institutional data repository, and they are using DOIs for that. So why should we use DOIs for that wide range of research outputs, and why should we register them with DOIs? First of all, using digital object identifiers for these DOIs can really increase the visibility and the discoverability. It will also improve the accessibility, the ability to get citations. It will also enhance the reusability for all your research output and resources. And we all know reusability is a very, very important point when we talk about the concept of open science and increasing also the reusability of research. Also, in the context of data sets, using the digital object identifier is really aligned with all the FAIR principles. What we have seen right now also is in some countries started also to build or develop their national bid strategy. So we have, for example, the Research Data Alliance issued strategies and guidelines, the checklist for countries that are willing to build their national bid strategy. We have a fantastic example for the Australian Research Data Commons, who, by the way, is leading also a data site consortium in Australia. They are building their national bid strategy. And we have JISC in UK also, they are building a UK national bid strategy. The aim is to connect all the research outputs that the country is producing, along with all the ROR IDs affiliated to the organization of a particular country, along also with all the researchers through ORCID IDs that are affiliated to these universities in a specific country. All of these items together are connected with the global research ecosystem. This is an example of the different work types that are registered with data-side DOIs. This is from our own data site registry. And as we can see, we have almost 15 million data sets, 12 million physical objects, 4 million images, 1 million preprints. So all this wide range of resources are registered through our 1,400 research organizations that we collaborate and work with. Now we are going to talk about DataSite Global Access Program, one of our strategic initiatives that we started this year at DataSite. The program has been launched in February 2023 through a funding that we received from a Chan Zuckerberg initiative. Our aim is to increase the global bid adoption around the globe, and in particular in the underrepresented regions in Africa, Latin America, Middle East, and Asia. So in order to achieve that, we took a comprehensive approach. That approach has three main components. The first one is outreach activities. The second one is technical infrastructure. The third one is funding element. So within the outreach, we start to analyze the needs and educational opportunities per region. We also started to develop regional educational materials in regional languages as well. We are also exploring collaboration opportunities with different organizations. We are setting up an ambassador program to build that network of volunteers around all gap regions. We're also working on providing case studies and regional exemplars. This is some examples from our activities. As you can see, we delivered webinars in different languages, Spanish, Arabic, across also different regions, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Within our second component of our global access program at the infrastructure, we are working to analyze the existing infrastructure landscape in all gap regions. We're also aiming to collaborate with the repository platform and the service provider with the goal to set up a user groups to exchange knowledge and reuse code in some cases. This is a snapshot from these reports. These reports are going to be published soon with the community. We are just finalizing them right now. And I attach here a screenshot from the MENA region. So as we can see, we use the standardized data sources like ROAR, OpenDoar to track the total number of repositories in the Middle East and Asia region. We are also tracking the service providers' infrastructure to have an understanding about which softwares are being used the most. So we have, for example, DSpace is leading in the MENA region, and then we have ePrints followed by OGS and different softwares as well. So we are trying to have an idea or an understanding about the existing used software. Then the third component of our global access program is funding. So our aim is to enable organizations worldwide, especially in gap regions, to make the research outputs discoverable. So all non-profit organizations in Africa, Asia, Middle East, and Latin America can apply for that. So we are funding three different categories: outreach activities, infrastructure development, and demonstrators. Applications have been closed now because the call for proposals was launched on 1st of September. We just closed it 15th of October. And I can tell you that so far we have received more than 170 applications from all gap regions. So this is fantastic. We are currently reviewing them. And these projects will run, the winners will run through all the course of 2024. And we are also currently working on 2024 Global Access Fund. So we will launch a call for supporters soon as well. So regarding the current adoption of DOIs, data site DOIs in the MENA region, we do have some members in the MENA region, like we have the National Research Center in Morocco. We have King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, but the aim is to increase that global adoption in the Middle East and North Africa region. I would like to invite all of you to join our community. So we have two options for that. There are direct membership. So if you have an institutional repository or two institutional repositories and you want to connect them with our infrastructure and register your research output and get DOIs, you can join through a direct member or through a consortium membership. So if you are a group of universities in one country or in one region, if you are a national center and you want to start a DOI consortium in your country and give access to all your universities to connect their research repository, their institutional repositories with us, you can also join our community. I added the URL here if you want to know more information. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I will really do my best to join the Q&A session to respond to any inquiries if you have. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'm going to thank you directly and personally because I know you're with us. So thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative. Look forward to discussing a few points of it more in the Q&A after our last panelist. So with that, I'd like to introduce our last panelist. It's Dr. Johansen Obanda. He's been with us at F.O.R.M in person the last 2 days in Abu Dhabi as well. So it's been a pleasure having you with us, Johansen. He's the Community Engagement Manager at Crossref. He works with Crossref ambassadors to effectively engage their communities and to support Crossref's outreach initiatives. Johansen is passionate about building inclusive research ecosystems where researchers across the globe can easily access scientific knowledge. So with that, Johansen, I'd like to hand it over to you for your presentation. Thanks again for being with us.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate it. It's been an amazing, say 3 days, yeah, here. I'm meeting wonderful people, and I'm really grateful for the invitation and for the opportunity to make a presentation this evening. So I'm going to share my screen. I hope that you can see my screen. Yeah, great, fantastic. So my name is Johansen Obanda, and I'm Community Engagement Manager at Crossref. I was to be joined today by Dr. Salwan Abdul-Latif, ambassador from Iraq, but he has a family emergency to take care of, and I'm just going to go on with the presentation. Yes, so my presentation today is about the research nexus, which is a rich and reusable open network of relationships of the scholarly record. And I'm going to first of all introduce Crossref, or what we do at Crossref, talk about the research nexus, and then end with a presentation about the publishers, learning, and community exchange. So this is a quick overview of Crossref. We were founded by a few scientific societies and publishers, most in the US and Western Europe, seeking an efficient way to link references in journal articles, and solution was using DOIs. And 23 years later, today, our membership comprises about 35% of publishers, with the largest group, about 40%, self-identifying as research institutions and universities. And we've moved to focus on member because many of our members not self-associate as publishers, as publishing is not their primary function. And just like Mohammed, we are all, just like Mohammed's organization, DataSide, we're also a POSI compliant organizations as principles of open scholarly infrastructure. And we currently have over 18,000 members from 150 countries. So we also work with third-party service providers and metadata users who do not contribute to our metadata store, but make use of it via our API and such interfaces for a variety of different purposes. And all of our metadata is openly available. So regardless of the type of content, the richer and more comprehensive the metadata is, the more value there is for our members and the community. And this metadata forms the basis for what we call the research nexus for the rest of my presentation. The community needs open scholarly infrastructure that can adopt the changes in scholarly research and communications. And we've been changing and adapting already by building on the concept of scholarly record with our vision. And the research nexus vision is a rich and reusable open network of relationships connecting research organizations, people, things, and actions, a scholarly record that the global community can build on forever for the benefit of society. A big part of the research nexus is establishing connections between and among different research objects, which establishes provenance over time. Adding relationships to your metadata as a member, to your metadata records can convey much richer and more nuanced connections beyond traditional references. And these relationships may consist of versions, corrections, translations, data formats, supplements, and components And there are normally no extra fees for including relationships in your metadata when you're registering your content with Crossref. And what is metadata? Metadata is communication, and it describes and identifies an item. It defines relationships. It sets parameters for the range of actions something can engage in. As the things we read, write, create, use, move around, and engage with become more digital, metadata becomes more important, because without metadata, all that movement, interaction, and discovery could not happen. And when registering their content, members supply us with a wide range of metadata. Basic metadata include things like titles, authors, publication dates, issue numbers, SSN, ISBN, anything that describes the content you're registering. We also collect additional data about the item being registered, and this can include reference list, funding data, ORCID IDs, license data, clinical trial information, abstract, and data about relationships between items. Information on errata, retractions, updates, and more can be registered through our Crossmark service. The metadata that is sent will vary based on the type of content that is being registered. And we ask that you send us as much metadata as possible and that it be accurate and clean. And the more comprehensive your metadata is, the more likely your content will be discovered and disseminated. However, this is only true if the metadata is accurate. So please don't worry about including information that you're not sure about. The records can always be updated for free. And in fact, we strongly encourage that you do that whenever you find more information to add to your records. And why registering comprehensive metadata is important? Well, it's because many organizations and researchers use that metadata to find the content that you publish. Because cross-source metadata is standardized and machine readable, it is very useful to many organizations that create tools and services using the metadata. And these include author profiling tools, manuscript tracking systems, library discovery services, metric providers, and more. And we receive over 600 million metadata queries per month across all of our search interfaces. So what does metadata do? A lot. 4 things here that metadata enables. We've heard about discoverability. The more metadata you include about a piece of content, the easier it is for others to search and discover. From researchers to organizations who use Crossref metadata to build their own tools and services for the research community. A few examples of how our book's metadata project has shown that books with basic metadata are more likely to come up in searches in Google Scholar. Journal articles with deposited references seem to be cited more than those without. Reproducibility is also critical. Researchers need to be able to build upon each other's work. Verifying and reproducing the results from earlier work is helped by metadata such as links to funding, protocols, research data, and peer review reports help to create a complete picture of a work. In addition, metadata also helps determine the integrity of the research, who funded the research, what are the affiliations of the authors, could there be a conflict of interest. Reporting and assessment may be carried out by a variety of organizations, including universities and funders, in order to show the accountability and benefits of public investment, provide benchmarking information, demonstrate compliance with funders, funder mandates, and decide what research to fund. And including metadata such as affiliation, which is RR identifiers, ORCID IDs, funding and grant information, license URL, peer review reports, and links to preprints all help with this. Now I'll move to the last part of my presentation, which is about the place. And this is the Publishers Learning and Community Exchange, and at the place.discourse.group. And it's a new online public forum, and it helps to bring all of this together, to help to bring people together to talk about how they can create more connectedness in the global scholarly record. It is a forum that is created for organizations interested in adopting best practices in scholarly publishing. New scholarly publishers can access information from multiple agencies in one place and ask questions of the experts and join conversations with each other. The Publishers Learning and Community Exchange was created by 4 organizations, that is CORP, Crossref, DOAJ, and OASPA. And you can access information about observing best practices in your publishing workflows. And as you can see in this slide, you can browse categories and you can start a new topic, or you can find out the responses of you can find out from the responses to a question, for a similar question that you might be having. You might also help or support other community members by responding to the questions that they have. But we envisioning a robust community out of the place that will change how research is being done, or even change how the publication landscape looks like right now. And it is set up, the place is set up as a forum, and it's set up to encourage open exchange with publishers who aspire to do things right. After you join, you can browse through the topics of interest. You can ask questions in response to posts already existing on this forum, and also you can start new topics with any of the forum categories. And also you basically need to register as a user to do that. At the place, you will be able to find trusted and accurate information. You will also be able to find solutions to problems and gain better understanding of publishing processes and standards, share experiences and best practices, and ask questions of your own. Thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you, Anson, for your presentation. It's very interesting to see what's happening at Crossref, and certainly impressive to see how large the organization has become. Actually, I wasn't aware of the membership numbers to that extent. So that's quite something. Okay, that's the end of our presentation section of the panel. We'll now open it up to a Q&A section. The Q&A box here, I have a few questions that have come in on my phone through different communication channels, but the Q&A box here in the Zoom window here is still a little bit empty. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, please don't be shy. I see that we have a healthy number of attendees in the session, so please do feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box. I'm going to start with one that I received here through a separate channel. Whether we're talking about Crossref or ORCID or DataCite, you're all big players in supporting the research ecosystem. I think that's fair to say. ORCID and Crossref within the commercial space, DataCite coming at it from nonprofit perspective. You all know what F.O.R.M is trying to achieve. I think Johansson knows more than anyone else. He's been with us for almost 3 days now. F.O.R.M is obviously trying to promote open access publishing research output here in the MENA region. You've also all worked with Knowledge for a long time. I'm with Knowledge. Mohammed was previously with Knowledge. He knows us intimately. We're being the regional ambassador for both Crossref and ORCID. So the first question here is, I'm posing to all 3 of you. What areas do you think that the 3 of you can collaborate in, possibly with Knowledge and F.O.R.M, in a more practical way to meet the goals of F.O.R.M more generally in terms of increased open access, research output, and publishing here in the MENA region? I'm going to leave the floor to any of the three of you that want to respond on that first.
It's fine, I can start. So yeah, thank you, Isaac, for the question. I think this is a really interesting one. One aspect that I think we can collaborate, whether with Knowledge or with F.O.R.M as well, is the engagement activities, raising the awareness among the regional communities about open research practices, about open science policies, raising the awareness also about the value of persistent identifiers, their valuable role in building that open research infrastructure in the MENA region. So I think these terms, even some of them will be completely new to the region. So we can definitely collaborate with F.O.R.M. So I'm talking from data side perspective. We have an organized community development activity with F.O.R.M next month. Not next month, in December, I think. So yeah, so I think that element or that aspect of raising the awareness among the community is definitely one of the points where we can collaborate with the F.O.R.M initiative.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. Anything else that Nabil or Johansson you'd like to add in terms of raising awareness or other practical steps to be taken here in the region?
I'm going to go second.
Please.
So yeah, and really just to echo what Mohammed just shared now, and also to take the opportunity to congratulate Knowledge E, really you, Isaac, Dr. Emily, Nahil, and Mr. Cameron, for the success of this unique event, and particularly from this region. We've had a lot of opportunities to federate voices from the community around conferences and events. But really with F.O.R.M MENA, I felt that there is something new and something very constructive, not only for the community, but also for the different service provider or infrastructure organizations like ORCID, DataCite, and Crossref. So I believe that in the upcoming years, there will be a big room for the different organizations and different infrastructure providers to participate not only in growing F.O.R.M MENA community, but also in helping them in further apply and use the open research infrastructure and really benefit from Crossref, from DataCite, and from ORCID, all of them at the same time and where feasible. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the kind words on F.O.R.M as well. It's been a joint effort across the company. Everyone at Knowledge has contributed to it. It's something that, as you know, takes a huge amount of organization. Dr. Emily is spearheading it, and her drive and enthusiasm is certainly what has gotten us to where we are now. But couldn't have been done with help from everyone inside Knowledge. So it's certainly appreciated that that's been recognized. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And just to add on what Nabil and Mohammed have talked about, I think also Crossref is a key on supporting open science. When I was in the sessions, like the past 2 days, open science has been is crucial in the conversation, and the push for open science in the MENA countries is also something that is currently being considered a lot. And so as we move on, as many countries keep on adopting policies and creating a supportive environment for open science to thrive, I think the three infrastructure, open research infrastructure providers, DataCite, Crossref, and ORCID, I think will be central to driving further, accelerating or leveraging the adoption of the open science policy mandates in the MENA region. Also thinking this goes hand in hand with research integrity talks, and I think one way that Crossref would be functionally helpful in this is like conversations around infrastructures, open infrastructures supporting open science initiatives, and also research integrity. Alongside that will be of interest to us at Crossref. Yes, so hoping to continue collaboration beyond this in the community development series, but also in other dialogues or that will be happening at F.O.R.M. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I'd like to touch on something, Mohammed, that you were saying around raising awareness. We had an interesting panel actually this morning with a librarian of the University of Manitoba. Let me see if I can pull up his name, actually. I'd like to credit him properly. With Jordan Bass, who is the coordinator for research services and digital strategies at the University of Manitoba Libraries. And he made a good point that at least in Canada, or Manitoba, Canada, researchers are still, they are trying to push researchers to self-publish their articles, which is kind of the last stage of open access, really, but they're resistant to do so, and they're still feeling a big push or kind of pressure to publish in established open access journals, with which of course you incur APCs. And those APCs are in Canada, they're being absorbed by the libraries, but even when they're being absorbed by the libraries, there are discount programs going on, but still a lot of those costs are being absorbed by researchers as well. And his argument was that even with those discount programs, even within the open access space, this is actually limiting research visibility and research output, because these funds could be better spent elsewhere on things like building awareness or things on bettering research visibility, infrastructure, and programs. What would be your take on that? What would be your thoughts on that? I asked him already, how can we improve this system? And he said, that's the $1 million question. If I knew that, the problem wouldn't exist. But obviously, everyone has a slightly different interpretation on this issue, and be interesting to hear from the three of you as sort of infrastructure providers, where you think the problem sits and how we can move towards kind of moving away from this problem.
Yeah, so my simple answer to this will be, it takes time. It really, really takes time. And given that I have just joined DataCite 4 months ago, and I can really, really tell you, and for Nabil and for Ubanda, I'm sure they shared the same experience with me, that it really takes time to build a community and to change something that is already established. It needs a lot of conversation, as you mentioned, Isaac. It needs a lot of conversation with the policymakers as well, to convince them to, for example, to move from an existing working system to a different aspect of a new system. It takes time to communicate to the academic researchers, which we consider them a valuable part of the stakeholder of the research ecosystem, but also changing that community is difficult as well. I can tell you, for example, from DataCite perspectives, like raising the awareness among the researchers to deposit their data sets, for example, one of type of the research outputs that they produce. So they will be, oh, okay, so I'm worried about to protect my data. What about the copyright situation for my data? So yeah, so it's really a collaborative effort as well to communicate with all these different stakeholders, and it takes a village, I think, to build a community.
Sorry, you're muted, Johansson.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, so I can add that I think the case study, I think an example of what I've seen happen in the publishing landscape is a national adoption of like open science policy in Indonesia, or just a change in the laws that required now a whole shift of all institutions to adopt open research infrastructure, and that led to like a collective and like the whole research community adopting this open infrastructure. Yeah, I think it would be a good suggestion. It would be a good suggestion to look at different countries or case studies of what has happened, and maybe what the process was to change and to start adopting open infrastructure services, but also maybe to publish in that new way and leave maybe the current and conventional way that they're doing the publications, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. Nabil, I saw you were trying to interject earlier, so.
Yeah, I mean, very briefly to echo what Johansen said and what Mohammed said, really the pillars and roadblocks for this challenge are time and change. We really need to see this change in our communities and especially in the Arabic-speaking countries. And we really wish to reduce time, you know, to really attend this level of use of open research infrastructures and open access and open science systems. We are on our way, not there already, but we are working toward that, especially with these programs that we are putting in place, like the Global Participation Program for DataCite and Crossref and ORCID as well. So yeah, really looking into great achievements out of this.
Great, thank you for that. Thank you. I want to just touch on what you mentioned, Johansen, about Indonesia. I think Indonesia is an interesting example of a country that has really adopted open access in a major way. Now, of course, it's difficult to compare Indonesia to countries around it because it has a huge population, geographically a huge space, culturally is incredibly diverse. So maybe it shouldn't be seen on its own, but in the region, it's definitely sort of a success story in terms of open access adoption. And although it's not an Arabic-speaking country, it has very close relationships with the MENA region, with many countries in the MENA region. So that leads me to a question around open access adoption for the MENA region. Are there any countries that are leading in the region? Are there any that are falling behind? And why do you think that is? So if we take kind of a higher level view again, moving away from just the individual researchers and that change mindset that we just talked about, what about the countries that are leading or falling behind in the region? And again, that's for anyone, not putting Johansen on the spot there.
I'm gonna go for it. So just also very briefly, I mean, in my opinion, in my also days at ORCID, I really observed that the UAE is one of the countries that are leading basically and using open research infrastructures and trying to achieve the common global goals to make science open and to use different open systems and open source systems. That, and I think also there is Saudi Arabia and Egypt that are now trying to build on community of open science and really federating the community first before starting thinking of infrastructure, although we have some members, you know, pioneering some DSpace, which is a repository system, known repository open access system. And they did really some nice work integrating these different infrastructure in the repository system. So yeah, we have some examples that we can follow, but we are still a little bit far from reaching our goals in having everyone using this infrastructure.
Yeah, great. I think yeah, to add on what Nabil say, like I think UAE is doing quite good as well. Yeah, from the content or content that we receive or that are registered with us from UAE, from the MENA region, the UAE is doing quite good, quite commendable work. Yeah, but also I think a lot depends also on accessibility to the infrastructure itself, and the language and the usability as well of the infrastructure, but also the supporting policies. I know in the discussion in the last 2 days, it's been like many institutions are not willing to let everyone see the work that is being produced, so that's being archived there, and even individual researchers are not willing to let their work be discoverable or to be accessible, basically, maybe in full text by the rest of the world. And the change of mindset, I think, happens over time, but it's also depends on the landscape or the environment that the researcher is exposed to. If a lot of it is becoming more discoverable and there's impact attached to the discoverability of the work, then the rest of the researchers might be pushed to do that. But also, I think at F.O.R.M, what we are aiming to do also through the help of our local ambassadors is to try to localize and support as much as possible the community, so that they find the infrastructure relatable, and maybe if there's translations needed, and also working around schema in a bilingual or multilingual environment as well is also determines if the users will prefer to use the infrastructure. So there's a lot of efforts then around making this a success for the MENA region.
Great. Thank you for that. Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned the translation efforts. Nabil, you talked about in your presentation about name ambiguity and what efforts are being taken here in the region to kind of overcome that. Mohammed, you talked about the funding program, right, in place. I was wondering if we look into the future, if we say there's going to be sort of a massive uptake in open access publishing amongst researchers and academic institutions here in the MENA region. Of course, that's the ideal scenario, right? That's our goal. But if we hypothetically say that's going to happen, what are some of the steps that your three organizations would have to take to sort of accommodate that? Or how would you best accommodate that uptake, which might happen in an incremental way in the next few years? We're certainly going to see it. What do you think those future steps are going to look like? Everyone's very polite.
I think.
Yeah, go for it, John.
Okay, great. I think it'll be about working more closely, as the open research infrastructure providers, working more closely, or even re-strategizing, or thinking about the next decade, for example. Because, like, for example, back to the Indonesia case, within a very short time, or I would say maybe from nowhere, not entirely from nowhere, but then within a very short time, there's like a very big amount of scholarly record being registered and being added to the whole global scholarly record. And yeah, while this happened for Indonesia, it would happen also for maybe other MENA countries that are doing so well in research, and it might be so big. So I think what is expected is going to be a richer scholarly record that can link to the rest of the records downstream. But also it would be, I think, the possibility now of I think what I've really wanted to understand is, like, how can English, for example, English research output integrate or relate or connect with the Arabic research output as well in that way. And I think building such kind of connections will be something worth thinking about. Connections maybe in terms of metadata that can be translated and then linked together, so that it doesn't matter if I publish in English, but I can find some relating article in Arabic and then see what I can do about it to translate or to get a lot of information from it. And I think how closely how that can happen will be really great for the whole region, or also for the globe, basically.
Yeah, I think that was fascinating. Connecting, if that kind of translation could be automated, it would connect the region to the rest of the world in a huge way, just instantly. It would be connected. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, I can just add to what Obanda was saying. I think one aspect will be like working more closely with the regional organization in the MENA region, for example, building that partnership, that close partnership with the institutions as well. I think this is an important aspect. And I think in one way or another, we are already doing that, or started to do that now as the three organizations. So I think this is important, but with the volumes increasing, I think we'll need to do more of such activities and building that regional partnership as well. The point that Obanda mentioned about the translation, I think this will be a fantastic one also. Yeah, I think it will be around building a partnership with the regional stakeholders.
Great.
Yeah. Just to briefly add, I can't agree more with Mohammed and Johansson. Maybe add little part on basically how an institution from this region can prepare for these next steps. In my opinion, really preparing the infrastructure and the systems that will welcome this global infrastructure is very important. I was very surprised in the National Symposium for Open Science in Tunisia. I think it was 2 years ago, something like this. And I was talking with different participants, and one of the questions that I asked is, do you have an institutional repository? And guess what? The majority of the participants and the ones that I had a conversation with said that they do not. So some institutions do have subscription with SciVal, but they do not have institutional repository. So that's a big also contrast to have. So really, I believe that preparing the infrastructure, preparing the systems, so that the institution coming from these regions can fully benefit of the open research infrastructure coming from either from DataSat, Crossref, ORCID, or any other infrastructure provider.